everyone, welcome back to the Colour Cave where we like to play with art stuff. My name is Jem and today we have a set of coloured pencils that we are going to put through the ringer. I have here the Castle Arts Premium Soft Touch coloured pencils. I received this tin of 120 pencils as a Christmas gift, which was very nice indeed, and I'm really keen to try them out. So I have put them into a pencil case, and the first thing I want to do is take a look at the actual pencils themselves. The first thing to note about these pencils is that I do not consider these to be artist grade pencils. They do not have certified light fast ratings and they cannot be bought open stock, and that is the two things that says to me something is an artist grade pencil. So these are a middle of the road pencils. Price wise, for me being in the UK, these compete with the likes of the Artisas and the Black Widow pencils. They're in that same kind of ballpark. So that's the kind of mindset I have, and for that reason this would never be a go-to pencil for me. That, especially with some of the greens, wearing them down pretty quickly. These are quite a soft pencil. I would be worried that I would end up missing colours out the set and obviously not wanting to buy an entirely new set just for the sake of one pencil. So bearing that in mind, for those of you that are casual coloured pencil users or occasional coloured pencil users or are just coloured pencil collectors, because I know you're all out there and you've got 90 million sets of pencils, this review and these pencils may be for you. So you can see they are quite attractive looking. If I just take one of these out here, they are a circular barrel, which is quite common with coloured pencils, and they have this lovely dipped end. Now on the actual barrel itself is the colour name, and it is near the back end of the pencil, and also on the dipped part there is a corresponding code. I don't know how that's going to help us really, because you can't buy them open stock, so why would you need it? But some people prefer to note them by number rather than colour name. So they feel fairly sturdy. They have got a nice sort of soft silky coating on them, which makes them quite nice to hold. I do imagine in the summer with sweaty hands, I am one of those people that, as my hands are always roasting, so I do get sweaty hands in the summer. I can imagine that this could possibly be an issue. Aside from that, there's nothing else really to say about them. The wood part of the pencils, just looking across all of them, it looks quite uniform, and I don't see a lot of cracks and splits in the actual wood casing as well, which is a sign that they're reasonably well put together. So I've already swatched these out as well. I'll just pop this off to the side in my big swatch book. So here we have the colours at a glance, and the first thing that struck me when looking at the colour range, bearing in mind that this is a set of 120 pencils, so it is on the larger side of the available sets. I know we have some sets where you can get up to 150 pencils, but you're heading up in that direction, so you would assume that there'd be quite a balanced set of colours. So if I just show you the first page here, and then if we flick over, you can see the rest of the colours over these two pages. Now at a glance, I haven't used these pencils at all, so I'm really just going on a first impression here. But the thing that strikes me is, and it's the same with a lot of these sort of mid-range colour pencil sets, there are an inordinate amount of greens in all shapes and forms. So you've got more greens than you could shake a stick at. But they seem to be lacking in the browns and the sort of earthy tones, and if I show you down here, that is literally it. And even within that brown range, there's not a lot of cool browns. So I would say there's definitely a lean towards the brighter, more vibrant colours in this set, although there are some really nice colours. Green Gold is a really good one. That is a really versatile pencil because you can use it to lean into the yellows and also into the greens as well, and it works well with a lot of other colours. In the Polychromos pencil set, which is my go-to pencils, I use the Green Gold pencil for a lot of stuff and things that you wouldn't think of. So I'm really pleased to see that that's in there. When we come over to the purples, again, there seems to be a lot of variety right through from pinky purples through leaning towards the blue purples. But there's a distinct lack of like deep, rich colours there. So I don't know how I would fare with these in, you know, just in general use. We have a good range of pinky purples as well, this sort of magenta stroke fuchsia range. There's quite a selection there as well, and I'm always pleased to see that because I always kind of like these kind of colours as well. I'm quite drawn to these kind of shades too. As for the oranges and the yellows, For me, the yellow thing, I can do with 1 or 2 yellows in a set. A cold yellow and a warm yellow and a sort of deeper shade like this cadmium yellow, that's pretty much all I need. So I think there's a fairly good selection there. There are a couple here that would pass as cream as well, this Naples Yellow Light and also this Primrose Yellow. If used with a light hand, give you those sort of ivory and cream shades if you're just looking to tint your paper but you don't want any sort of hue in there, so they're really handy for that. They're also really useful for lightening up a colour if you like to you know, burnish and you want to lighten things up. They're great for that too, or even just for light casting on things as well. The last thing as well is the selection of greys, and again this seems to have been sort of popped to the side in favour of all these greens and these really bright colours. I'm a person that uses quite a lot of grey as well, so I was hoping for a reasonable selection, and they're all right. They're okay. I wouldn't say there's anything to shout about, and the black's not particularly good either. So that's just a quick overview of the colour selection that's available within these 120 pencils. Now the next thing is, how soft are they really? And this is a double-edged sword, because on the plus side, if you have a soft pencil, they're really easy to blend. You don't have to build up a lot of layers. So if you have hand issues like me, then that's something that can make colouring with them much, much easier and much, much more enjoyable. On the flip side of that, with soft pencils, because they have a soft core, they tend to be prone to crumbling, breakages, and also they don't keep a point for very, very long, so you spend a lot of time sharpening and you will chew through the pencil quicker than you would do with something with a harder core. So again, I'm just going to grab one of these. So this is teal green, which is right in my ballpark, and that's a fairly good point. So I just want to give this... This is a bit like the Black Widow pencils. They do come sharpened, but they've kind of got a flat top on them, and that drives me nuts. Okay, so there we go. I've got proper point on it now. And I'm just using a medium pressure here. And I'm just going to go back and forth. Already when I'm doing this, there is pencil dust coming off this, and it's very, very slight. I don't know if you can see it there on the paper, but if I squish my finger into it like that, I can actually mash it into the paper, and it's leaving little flecks behind. Now what that's telling me is that this is a soft pencil. You know, Prismacolors do this as well. So I'm just pressing a bit harder now, and there's definitely pencil dust coming off there. Now, if I show you the point of this pencil, you can see that I've taken a tip off it and it's slanting, and obviously that's where I've been leaning on it. And we do have a definite slant on the point there. So this tells me that these are going to wear down fairly quickly. Just for comparison here, I've got a little Prismacolor pencil just handy beside me here. Not very scientific, but that is a similar length of point. So I just want to do roughly the same, you know, length and size and pressure. Okay, so similar sized area, give or take. And if I show you the Prismacolor as well, you can see there I've got that same angle. And if I just compare those roughly, the Prismacolor has worn down slightly more, but not much more. So that tells me that these are not as soft as Prismacolors, but they're pretty darn soft. So for those of you perhaps that aren't in the market for Prismacolors, again, if like me you're in the UK and they're a fortune and you're not really up for spending that kind of cash, these could be a good alternative. That wasn't a very scientific experiment, but you get the gist of it. So let's see what we're like for blending. So if I might just keep this pencil, a teal green, and let's see if we can go into another more cypress green. Oh, okay, there we go. There's two fairly good colours, and we'll get a paler one. There's a jade green. Let's try that. That might be a bit too green though. That'll be alright. Okay, so let's see what we can do here. Let's see, this is just a really quick idea to see what we've got going on here. I'm just on copy paper here. This isn't like fancy paper or anything. And I find this is usually quite a good marker for stuff like this because you do have to work a little bit. So it's behaving itself in terms of layering, which is nice. And these pencils that seem to be gliding into one another without any issues at all. And this is really nice. Like, I'm enjoying this process right here. I'm not having to make an awful lot of effort considering I'm on terrible paper. But there you go. Those colours are going into each other absolutely no problem. And see, despite being on copy paper, I'm able to layer that up fairly well without any sort of issues. You know, I don't exactly have a lot of tooth going on in this paper. So I get a feeling that this pencil brand, just being a wee bitty firmer than the Prismas, this might be the type of pencil that kind of behaves quite well on most types of paper. There we go, that's a fairly nice transition for being on copy paper. It's quite smooth. I'm quite happy with that. And again, blues tend to be, if there are going to be any discrepancies in the firmness of the core, you tend to see a huge difference between the likes of your blue pigments and your red pigments, because red pigments tend to be a lot softer. So the fact that I've been able to do that with something heading into blue, I'm very optimistic about that indeed. That is really, really good. I'm really pleased with that. Now let's pick another colour. I was thinking one of these pinks here, because this looks like a really bright colour. And I just want to see if it really is, or whether, you know, they're just pretending. There you go. That's fairly pink, I would say, or as my mum would say, it's pink. Any colour that's really bright or loud, that's mum. It's like, it's not orange, it's orange. Yeah, there we go. That's fairly pigmented as well. That's nice. Now the other thing just to note at this point as well, if I just line these pencils up with what we've done, and let's take a look at the how close the colour is to the barrel. And I would say that the barrels generally, the dipped ends, obviously not the black part, but they seem to be slightly darker than how the pencil's coming out in the paper, but they're definitely in the right ballpark. You know, I wouldn't say that they're misleading, but I would say that you have to remember that your dipped ends are darker than the actual core colour. The other thing I noticed that just there when I was sliding those pencils back in as well, the barrels on these are slightly slimmer. I don't know what the diameter is, but just sliding them in and out of this pencil case with the slightly thicker diameter pencils like the Derwent pencils, they're kind of, you've kind of got to like ram them in a bit, but those are sliding in and out no problem. So they are of the slimmer variety. I'm just going to have a wee look and see if it tells us anywhere. Coloured pencil tutorial. No, I don't want a tutorial. I want you to tell me about the pencils. This makes me laugh as well. This is one of these ones where you go from stage 1 to stage 5, especially between 4 and 5. That's not a tutorial. That's this is a rough sketch with colour blocked in. This is a fully rendered drawing. Oh goodness me. Right, let's see. Now, it says here about the soft touch coloured pencils. Silky smooth, yes. Velvety soft leads, yes. With a large crayon of permanent colour with light fast qualities. Okay, so that's their way of trying to tout them as being light fast without actually saying, like, misleading people. Okay, this is just, oh, it's got all the colours. Look how wonderful. So this is the full range of Castle Arts colours. Now this is one of the things I really, really like about Castle Arts, and I've never tried any of their supplies. They have a universal colour system, and what they mean by that is if you want golden yellow, you can get that in a pencil, and you can get it in paint, and you can get it in a marker, and it's exactly the same colour. And that's something that drives me absolutely bananas with paint companies, when they have student grade paints and then they have artist grade paints, and they call them all different names even though it's technically the same colour. That drives me bananas. So this really, really appeals to me. You know, I'm really, really into this. So if you find a colour you like in any one of their supplies, you know you can change mediums and you're going to get the same colour. Now, how accurate that is an entirely different story, and I'm not sure about that. And that's something maybe we could investigate a little bit further, do a bit of an experiment. You all know I like an experiment. So if that's something you'd be interested in, then you can let me know. There is absolutely no technical information on these pencils whatsoever in the tin, which cheeses me off slightly. So I don't know, roundabout road for a shortcut, I don't know the diameter of the barrels, but perhaps somebody can let me know in the comments. I'm sure you've all probably Googled it by now. Okay, so for me, it's all very fair and well swatching things out in scraps of paper and talking about what's in the tin and blah blah. The proof is always in the pudding. So I've got my page in World of Flowers by Johanna Basford, and this is kind of like my test page for experiments and things. This one here, just while we're here, a lot of you won't have seen that video because it's quite an old video now. This square here, if I just show you in comparison to these ones, I did this with Crayola pencils. So if you're ever sitting there thinking I can't afford decent pencils, so my colouring skills are never going to be any good, I say otherwise. I say nay to that. You do have to work a bit harder, but you can see that's really bright, it's really vibrant, and I really like it, and I don't know why. I think it's just a combination of the colours. So yeah, don't let MD ever tell you that you need to spend money on pencils, because you really, really don't, but you do have to prepare to be patient and work hard. Anyway, that's an aside. Right, let's think about some colours here. Okay, I think I would like a blue gradient for the background here. We'll see how we get on with that. So I am going to pick out, so I'll make sure I've got the right set. Yep. So why don't we go from... Now straight away, there's something, now this is what I was saying about the proof really is in the using of the pencils. Never ever go just by swatching out. I am eyeballing for a sky blue colour here, and there is not a sky blue to be seen. The closest thing we've got are maybe these two here, and they're quite dark if you ask me. So we're lacking desaturated colours, again, which I'm not surprised about because the palette is very vibrant and bright, and that's kind of what they're touting. Okay, so let's go for cerulean blue, or cerulean blue, however you want to pronounce it, I don't mind. And let's go down into what they are calling Ultramarine Light. We're going to have to go into Prussian blue just because there's no other option really, unless we want to go to Ultramarine. Let's be brave, let's go into Indigo Light. And I'm looking as well to see if there's just an actual indigo, and there isn't, which is puzzling. Okay, so this is me. I would start with my lightest colour. Now the good thing about using this book, and it's one of the reasons that I do use it, is I can always count on the quality of the paper in Johanna Basford's books. And I like this because it is a lot of flowers. You can colour things in a standalone fashion if you're wanting to do something like this and test some pencils out. This first layer is going down a little bit scratchier than I thought it would, which has surprised me straight off. But I'm never too concerned about my first layer of colour because it's the first layer of colour. It's definitely, the pencils definitely don't have the lay down of their more premium counterparts, I can tell you that. I'm feeling that already. It may just be because I'm using a lighter blue. It may just be because it's this first layer, but I was expecting more colour payoff on the very first lay down than this. So I may have to rescind my comment about not having a blue that's pale enough, because this seems to be doing the job. I have to try and work out my thirds here about there. Let's get some of this ultramarine light. Now this seems to be a lot smoother going down than the paler blue, which is interesting. There will always be discrepancies, and it's what I was talking about earlier. It's like the recipe, or like the genetic makeup of each colour. It uses different ingredients the same way as you do in recipes, so the actual consistency will vary slightly, and you'll get that with all pencils. It doesn't matter whether they're artist grade or school grade or anything in between. And that's just the way that they make colours up. Yeah, this feels a lot, I want to say silkier, like the pencil's gliding on the paper a lot better than the paler blue colour. What was that colour? Cerulean blue. Cerulean blue. Can somebody please tell me what is the correct way to pronounce that, because that's upsetting me. Oh, it's gone all scratchy. That was weird. Okay, that we had like a colour splodge there. That was strange, really strange. And now we're very scratchy all of a sudden. So what that indicates to me is that there are maybe some slight inconsistencies in the core. Again, not uncommon in a pencil brand at this level, but you can see it looks a lot darker there. Okay, and we've got this Indigo Light. Now this one feels different again, and this feels like a Black Widow pencil. It's got that, I don't really know how to describe it. It's almost like it catches on the paper and it's just a wee bit grainy. And that's disappeared now. Maybe it's just because it was a fresh pencil. I don't know. I'm just describing what I'm feeling here because it's the one thing that you can't see. Obviously you can hear and you can see what's going down in the paper. So I always think that describing how things feel in your hand or how they feel going down. I am a very tactile person, so that's something that's very important to me anyway. But it's just that kind of thing that's lacking from having a video rather than someone trying something out for themselves. Ah, we seem to be off now, right? Okay, we're okay. Must have just been a new pencil-ish. Again, I'm not being careful here because I'm going to build these layers up, which also I will not make you sit through. But I just wanted you to see this first layer going down so that you can see what a light hand in each of these pencils look like. Obviously, it'd be quite unusual for anyone, whether colourist or artist, to only use one layer of pencil. And if you were going to go for that kind of tactic, you would use Prismacolors because they're very, very soft and you can literally smoosh it into the paper. Like, you can smash down one heavy layer and you're good. And I know people that are quite happy doing that, and that's why they like the Prismacolors, because that makes them easy to blend as well. And yeah, it's fine if you like that sort of thing. I prefer to take my time a bit more, and I like to be a bit more methodical. It depends what you're doing as well and what kind of paper you're working on. With Prismas being so soft, there's quite a few types of paper that they're not the most pleasant to use with. So I prefer a more middle of the road pencil that you know, is not adaptable. That's the wrong word. I suppose it's close enough. But yeah, a pencil that lends itself to different types of paper. You know, versatile. There we go. That's the word I was looking for. Got there. Yeah, I prefer a versatile pencil because it takes the headache out of things. I don't like to have to deliberate over, oh, what pencil should I use for this particular paper? And it's one of the reasons why I like Polychromos, because it tends to do that. It behaves well with most things. Okay, so for a first layer of colour, that's actually not bad at all. Okay, so I'm just going to build up a couple of layers here, and I shall join you back in a moment once that's done. I've just stopped to sharpen, and I haven't had the most pleasant experience. I've had a bit of crumbly lead, and I'm hoping if I just turn it there against the white of the paper, you can see that I've ended up with a rather strange little ridge on it there. The lead is quite crumbly. The other thing to note as well is that the colour laydown is definitely not as even as I thought it was going to be. I have patches in this mid-tone colour, and it really is patchy, and I'm having the same experience down here with the indigo as well, and I'm having to work quite hard to even it up. So what that's telling me is that the laydown isn't uniform, it isn't consistent, because I'm fairly confident in my ability to regulate my pencil pressure. I've been doing this long enough that, and you know, I'd like to think that I know what I'm doing, and the fact that I'm having to work really hard to keep everything even, it's a little bit disappointing, but it's not actually taken away from the overall enjoyment of using these pencils, because they do go down very silky. You know, you're not having to work hard at all with these pencils, and it's quite a nice feeling. You know, the pencil is quite a nice feeling under your hand. The other thing I've noticed as well is the difference between the second and the third layer of pencil is everything. That little section that I've just done there, that is the third layer of pencil, and that is just making all the difference. So that's 3 is the magic number. Cave points if you know the name of the band. But that third layer just seems to be the one that's sort of, you know, basically just sorting everything out. Alrighty, so that's me. I've finished this sort of background layer, and to be honest, it didn't go as well as I hoped it would. The colour is very patchy, and I'm kind of like, I keep picking pencils up and going back. The other thing that I've just done it again, the other thing that I've done twice is I have mixed up my mid-tone and my darkest tone pencil. This is the mid-tone pencil, and this is the darker tone, and if you look at the dipped ends, it's the other way around. That's why I've mixed them up, and I've just done it there, and I did it down here as well. So I rescind my previous statement about the barrel colours matching. These ones are particularly far out, and to me, to be perfectly honest, that's never indigo in its life. So that's just an observation with that. That aside though, the pencils are still really pleasant to use. Like, it's a nice experience actually colouring with them. It's very, very pleasant indeed. Anyway, I thought we'll just try some of the brighter colours now. Now, I've been eyeballing this cherry pink colour because it looks really, really nice, which is this one here. And I was thinking we could maybe try out these. Yeah, that is a lovely shade of pink. Now, this is behaving far more like I expected. The rest of the pencils, and again, I was talking about the difference between blues and reds, and this feels like a different pencil. This is nice. So yeah, that's pleased me a little bit more there. These are really easy to work with though. Like, no issues at all there. Boom, boom, boom. job is a good one. Maybe one of these purplier ones. Though we could just try actual purple. Oh, lavender. We know a lavender. And that's fairly nice as well. And again, this feels a lot more like the blues. It's a little bit reluctant to go down on the paper. Let's have mulberry as our... Whoa, haha, chucking pencils about as a darker shade here. And it's very reluctant to go down on top of there, but I'm making it... yeah, that doesn't want to cooperate, really. Okay, so I've got the magenta pencil here as well, and I'm just going to use that in conjunction with this cherry red, and I just want to bring this into the butterfly. Yeah, the pencils don't... They're like really grudging layering. The different colours are grudging layering on top of other colours, which is... it's a bit frustrating actually. Like I'm having to press really hard there. And that's only 2 layers of pencil. And also I was expecting more of a difference between those 2 shades, and there's really not that. They've just kind of like smooshed together. So that's something to note as well. Whereas again, the barrel colours, you would assume that they were quite different. And when I do this, they do look a little bit different. But when I start bringing this pink in, they're just kind of like merging into one another, which is not what I was expecting, to be perfectly honest. They do look really rich and deep though there. Then I'm enjoying that aspect of these pencils, because I'm not really, you know, that's not much work to get to that stage really. But yeah, I feel as if these pencils are fighting me. It's like, oh, I'll do it, but it's grudged. Right, let's try out a green or 2 as well. This is where Jim gets excited. I really like the look of the Viridian pencil and the Terra Verde Deep, which is actually more of a blue. It's not really a green. But I think I'll go with Juniper and Viridian just at a glance, and we'll see if we can do something with those. Okay, so I was thinking the Viridian, which is the darker pencil, I would use for these vines. Now, what I'm doing here is I'm pressing really, really hard, and it's just because I want to test out how the pencil copes if it's just on its own, a la, with the Prismacolor type efforts. That I've been able to smoosh it into the paper. And I seem to be getting quite nice lay down, actually. These pencils, they're like me, they just like being by themselves. Oh my. Rename it the Gem Colour Cave pencil instead of the Castle Arts pencil. That's coping fairly well on its own. So using this lighter colour then, I'll just... Now see again, that feels really scratchy. Like, that's not nice. I'm assuming it's just because it's a new pencil. There's maybe a slight coating on the tip. Yeah, because that's it. It's fine now. Okay, that's just a new pencil thing. We've established that. And that as a first layer as well is much more even than the blues were. And again, like, it feels nice. They're just very pleasant to use. Very, very pleasant indeed. Now the issue comes though when I start going in with something else. But if I build this up, they're just really not that willing to communicate with each other, I think is what's going on here. They are blending together, but they're blending so much that it all looks like one colour. That's going to be a little bit less of an issue in larger areas, because obviously that's going to be much more gradual. But when you're working in small areas like this, it's not ideal. So I'm actually wondering to myself now, is there such a thing as pencils that blend too easily? Although I do seem to be getting a reasonable amount of depth here, it's not terrible. We do also seem to be able to achieve some fair amount of depth, a fair amount of depth even, with the singular pencils, because the dark areas are quite dark, they're quite deep. But it's how much we can build them up. And the answer is not a huge amount. But that looks fairly good. I'm now keen to try this to see how much of it actually pops out with that sort of darker blue background. So let's have a little go on this side and just see what happens. Now this is obviously more down to my colour choices rather than the quality of the pencils. But I always think it's something that's quite interesting to see, because I notice with a lot of pictures, I am not a vibrant colourist. Nor am I a vibrant artist. I prefer desaturated colours, very delicate colours, or monochromatic pieces. That's my preference. But I always like, you know, I enjoy looking at people that have created really bright artworks, and so that you tend to see those with the Prismacolor pencils. So I'm always quite curious to try this out, even though it's maybe not something that I would do my good self a lot of the time. I do have my moments, I suppose, but there is obviously a learning curve with this as well, because these pencils and I are new to each other. And I have, as I said before this video, I hadn't picked them up at all other than just to swatch them out. So there is a degree of a learning curve here, but it's not a big one, to be honest, and it's not really impacting what I think of these pencils. And the colour seems to be doing quite well here. I'm reasonably happy with that. I have got a slightly off-centre core in this Viridian pencil, and I'm just noticing it. If I do that, and you can see the length of the point on one side, and if I turn it round it slopes away down there, and that's because the core's off centre and we can't see because it's got a dipped end. I think I'll try out one of the more yellowish shades, and that's us probably covered most of the colour groups. I'm quite keen to try one of these paler yellows. If we go in behind these flowers here. Now, as expected, this feels very soft, and it's difficult to see because it's a pale colour, but I have a sneaking suspicion that the laydown's pretty good in this just by the way it feels under my hand. And that is a very delicate shade indeed, and that is exactly what I was after. I'm going to grab this Naples Yellow as well, which looks remarkably to me like it's got headed into like a peachy tone almost. See, this is more my kind of thing. Like this is definitely more gem than what we've been doing, and that's just exactly what I was hoping for. Ever so delicate and subtle, but that you can see compared to that side, that is there, and that's probably going to be my favourite pencil in this entire set, out with the greens, just because of this very subtle and very delicate, but definitely their colour. Because I do feel that the other colours, they're the pencil equivalent of one of my migraines. That's what I would class this set of pencils as. Everything's very bright and breezy and saturated, and you know. And then we've just got this little Naples pencil in here just doing its thing. Look at that. That is so pretty. And so much so, like, that's actually really fired something up in me. Before I was just a bit meh, but it's made me want to do this bottom part as well and do the same thing. So I'm just going to go ahead and do it. This is not meant to turn into a colouring video. This is meant to be a pencil test. So in the back of my head while I've been doing this, I have been thinking about their place on the market, these pencils, where they sit in the market. And I mentioned at the start that they are firmly in that mid-price camp, definitely because of the aforementioned reasons. So in terms of that mid-price pencil, I have tended to favour the Arteza pencils up to this point. My problem with the Arteza pencils are that they don't always sharpen particularly well, and that the writing rubs off the barrels, which is just a minor inconvenience. So I think really in terms of the laydown, I still prefer the Arteza pencils, but these are very, very pleasant to use, and I feel now that I'll just have to keep using them for a little while to get a really good grasp of them. Do I think they are a contender for me in terms of my go-to mid-price set? Possibly. I'm not gonna say with certainty. Right, okay, pluses for these pencils then. A great range of colours, particularly if you are into bright and vibrant colours. They feel lovely under your hand, like they really are. They're very, very pleasant to use, most pleasant to use in fact. There are some colours to get excited about that you wouldn't necessarily find in your everyday run of things. This Terra Verde colour I am super happy to have. The green gold is another one. If your thing is pinks and greens, you have more colours than you can shake a stick at, and generally the build quality of these pencils feels quite good. They do not feel like cheap pencils, and that's something I talk about a lot. I'm really put off by something that feels cheap or insubstantial. The downside to these pencils, aside from the obvious, number one, they're not light fast, number two, you can't buy them open stock, The only other complaint that I have about them is these dipped ends. It's made me make a mistake twice in the first time that I've used them. So the dipped ends aren't necessarily accurate and they don't necessarily match up with the actual core colour. And again, that is a minor grievance because that's something you get used to over time as you get to know a set of pencils. You know, for example, with the Polychromos and the Prismacolor pencils now, I don't have to look at them. I can just tell by, you know, number one, their place in the pencil case, but also the colour of the pencil. I know which one's the right one, and it doesn't matter that it doesn't match the paint colour on the barrel, if that makes sense. So yeah, that is more a getting used to your pencils things, but it's still quite irritating, especially if you're working quickly. Or, you know, like me, if you're pushed for time, you want to be able to glance quickly and just pick your pencil up when you're changing your pencils out. And it's just a bit too easy to make a mistake with these for that reason. So all in all, I would say they definitely get a thumbs up from me. I would prefer these over Black Widow pencils for sure, and it's just because they've got that nice velvety smooth feeling, and again being slightly softer for someone that takes a lot of issues with nerve damage in my hand. They're just much nicer to use. And they don't feel scratchy or anything underneath the hand, but the proof will be in prolonged use. But this is quite a good starting point just to discover a little bit more about them. So hopefully you have found this information helpful. I will finish this little picture off at some point, maybe over the next week or so. So when I'm finished it, I'll pop it over on Instagram and also on Facebook, so that you don't get frustrated. Actually finish it. So thank you very much for watching, guys, and we shall see you back in the cave really soon for another video. Have a good day, everyone, and bye for now.